when I'm in paralysis or needing to rest a lot, there's not much you can do in that time if you're still awake. So I really gravitate towards podcasts and audiobooks because it's something that is like no energy, and I still feel a part of the world, and I still feel like I'm learning and growing, or just having that company. Sometimes it'll be a pop culture podcast and it will just feel like I've got friends around me. It's kind of that company. So my phone is amazing in that way. And obviously for writing as well. I use a lot just in Notes app and stuff to make notes for my writing.
Hi, I'm Leanne Watson. I'm so happy to have you here on our podcast talk show, You, Me and Muscular Dystrophy. I'll be asking 10 questions of each guest, exploring the humanity and experiences of living with MD. I'm so happy to have you here. Welcome back to You, Me and Muscular Dystrophy. And today I'm chatting from Wadawurrung country on Victoria's Bellarine Peninsula with poet, artist, filmmaker, disability advocate, Tayla Richardson from Naarm, Melbourne. That's quite a mouthful for someone who's, whose breathing isn't, is a little bit more impacted now. And like most neuromuscular conditions, even though Tayla doesn't have technically muscular dystrophy, it has got quite a few syllables again. So it's Congenital Myasthenic Syndrome, or CMS, and periodic paralysis. It has many overlapping, or they both have many overlapping symptoms to muscular dystrophy. And it's an even more rare neuromuscular condition that affects movement, and in Tayla's case results in periods of total paralysis. So I think Tayla's story is definitely worth sharing because, as we all know, we're about 7,000 rare diseases in Australia. And so there's bound to be at least one other person going through something similar and, can take inspirational comfort in knowing they're not alone. Tayla uses her experience and is honing her innate artistic talents to advocate and educate. And I'm super excited to be able to chat to her further after listening to a lot of your work. Hi, thank you very much for coming on, Tayla.
Thank you so much for having me, and I'm really excited to be part of your community.
Great. What are these conditions and what has living with them meant for you, Tayla?
Yeah.
Congenital myasthenic syndrome, yeah.
Yeah, I had to learn a lot as I went as well. Very common in the rare disease world, but I was undiagnosed for at least 10 years with symptoms before I had any kind of ballpark and then a more narrowing diagnosis. So the way I like to describe these conditions is it's an issue between my nerves and muscles where they're not connecting properly. There's a disconnect there. So it's actually in the neuromuscular junction, which is between the nerves and the muscles. And it can result from a wide range of problems in that area. But for me, it can affect all of my skeletal muscles. So everything from my limbs to my facial muscles, eye muscles, and also breathing as well. And it progressed slowly over time for me. I grew up able-bodied, so I didn't have any symptoms until I was 17. And at 17, they were really non-specific. So just a lot of fatigue when doing things, and something that I would constantly try to push through, which I'm sure is very common in our community. Yeah, I was starting to get more muscle weakness over time, and it really progressed over my 20s to the point where it was affecting all of my muscles. I was getting respiratory weakness, and I started getting these periods of full body paralysis, which for me is mostly triggered by exertion. So it's like a threshold. The more that I do, the weaker that I get. And if I don't stop and don't really listen to my body, they can completely stop working and completely paralyze. which can be really make you really vulnerable and can be really tricky. I was very fortunate once we kind of narrowed down the diagnosis. There's a couple of different medication options which can help with management, which I was able to gain at my late 20s. And since then, I've stabilized a lot. Yeah, it's really, really helping me kind of have a bit more quality of life, because before then I was very much in survival mode, just trying to get through my
Mm.
days.
Yes, I can imagine, and worrying about the next. There's so many adjectives you could use for those situations of paralysis, but frightening and terrifying are two things.
Uh,
So you would
yeah,
kind of almost be too scared as well, wouldn't you, to even
yeah.
kind of attempt to try and do something like, I don't know, jump on a train and go into Melbourne or something like that?
Absolutely, definitely. And they started more sporadic, where it would happen not as often. And then at their worst, before I started medication, they would happen like up to 4 times a day. And for me, they're usually about an hour for me to kind of get the top half of my body moving again, and then usually another hour for me to be able to like move my legs again. So that's a lot of the day that would end up being taken up
Mm.
in, yeah, kind of a very difficult situation. And that often means now that I need to have someone with me, particularly anytime I leave the house, because it can still happen at any time. They're much more managed now, but it can still happen if I've done too much, or all the things that happen kind of with MD as well. The heat and the all the different factors can influence as well.
And can you feel kind of an attack, for want of a better word, coming on now? Are you more attuned to knowing, like, so you've got someone with you, you're halfway, like I'd noticed you went to the Melbourne Aquarium recently. If it's a
Yeah.
warm day or whatever and you're halfway there, are there sort of triggers that and what would you do if you're in the middle of that sort of situation? Do you just go somewhere
Yeah.
cool for half an hour or
Yeah,
that?
no, that's a great question. I've definitely I've experienced over 1,000 now at this point, so I'm very aware to what that feels like
Gosh.
in my body. Um, so,
And you're
and
only
some of them
young,
have,
aren't you?
yeah, so
You're only
I'm
young.
32.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, so 32, and then I started getting them when I was in my early 20s. So it's been a lot over the years, and definitely learnt to really listen to my body a lot more. And like you said, those signs and signals, sometimes people close to me now can also realize that often it'll start with me responding less in my face. My facial muscles will start just drooping, and they're like, "You're not smiling at me anymore," or my voice will go softer and weaker and a bit more, we call it like fry, a bit more like uh, raspy, I guess, like a morning
Yes,
voice.
yeah, yeah.
So often it will actually start with my face, and then, yeah, I can usually feel everything just feels really heavy. Like I like to describe it like walking through like mud, or it just
Mm,
gets really heavy, which I know would be really
yes,
relatable as well.
definitely, yeah,
So,
yeah.
yeah, so all
Right,
those kind of a
okay.
little triggers, yeah.
Yeah, and for that reason, for a lot of those reasons, you, like, intermittently use a wheelchair, don't you? You don't necessarily need
Yeah.
to all the time, but you do need to take care of your energy for that.
Yeah,
Yes.
definitely. So, most of the time I can be ambulant around my home, which is pretty small home, and it's very accessible, fortunately. No steps, no, everything's really flat and really close by. But anytime I leave the home, I do use a wheelchair, and I'm very fortunate to have like an electric wheelchair and electric attachment, because I don't have enough muscle strength to push myself for very far manually. So
Right.
because I've got that sustained weakness
Okay.
in my arms. So yeah, I do use a wheelchair pretty much anytime I'm out. And pretty much the max I could ever walk is about 100 meters. So it won't get you
Oh,
very far.
yeah.
And with that, it usually triggers paralysis. So it's all about, like you said, that energy conservation and the muscle usage conservation.
Yeah, yeah. Well, you certainly are doing a lot to get around all that anyway, from everything I've seen and read and listened to, which we'll get to, I'm sure, as the questions go on.
Yeah.
Was there anything you wished you knew when you were diagnosed? Like, is there anything you've
Um,
discovered since that you wished you'd known?
Yeah.
I guess.
I definitely think I've learnt a lot since I was diagnosed, particularly about community and where I can find and feel a part of community. I think with a rare disease, you can feel quite isolated a lot of the time. And I feel very fortunate to have kind of found those places, whether it's with a bigger kind of cohort of like Muscular Dystrophy Australia or Rare Diseases, Rare Voices Australia, where you're kind of in an umbrella of people, um, or the more specific to my condition. Most of those organizations are overseas. So things like Facebook and stuff has been super helpful to connect with them. Um, I do think that I grieved a lot when I was first
Mm.
diagnosed and even before then. And I think just knowing that that will ease, but it'll also keep coming up. It's kind of that cyclical effect where
Yes.
things will often trigger. And
Mm.
to know that you're not always going to feel, I guess, isolated and alone, and that having that kind of diagnosis opens a world in a way as well. It kind of makes you a part of a community, but it also that the grieving won't just stop then, that it will kind of continue as well.
Yes, yeah, there's always going to be reminders and things. Yes, to go through different stages of life, and friends and family are, doing their things as well. Yeah.
Absolutely.
So, what has been your most pivotal moment, whether that's related to, MS
CMS,
or
yeah, yeah, yeah.
PP or not? Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was hard. It was hard. It's hard to think of one particular moment. I think I've had multiple kind of pivot points,
Yeah.
which have kind of shifted my trajectory along my life. One would definitely be when, I guess, for quite a few, the first few years when I had symptoms, I was compensating a lot and trying to just act life as normal.
Mm.
For a really long time,
Yeah.
I was studying to be a nurse and a midwife when I first got symptoms, or actually, I was studying year 12 when I first got symptoms. And I had to stop in the middle of year 12 because, yeah, my symptoms were too much. And I ended up doing a distance education for my final year of school. And that, I guess, was the first pivot point. I always wanted to be, originally, I wanted to be a doctor, and I was studying, and I even took like the undergraduate medicine exam and was studying to be a doctor. And then once I was in the medical system and kind of had a little bit of experience, I really wanted to be a nurse and I wanted to be a midwife. So I actually went to uni to study to be a nurse and a midwife because I really wanted that patient interaction and that direct impact.
Right.
So the pivot point, really, there was a pivot point then when I kind of first, I guess, got off the train tracks of normal, I guess, trajectory of where all my peers were going with that distance education, and kind of had to create a new path. And then definitely, I studied 3 years of that degree, and it was a 4-year degree. And I was constantly having different symptoms and had to kind of take time off throughout that, and change placements because they're really grueling, like 40-hour-a-week placements. And as my symptoms progressed, it was just not feasible to continue. But I've always been super headstrong and like really goal orientated. So it was really tricky. Ended up being multiple like medical professionals and uni lecturers saying, we think you need to focus on your health and kind of need to take a step away from your
Right.
degree,
A long time.
which,
Yeah.
yeah,
To
which
get the
was really
message through.
tricky.
Yes. Yes, I can
Yeah,
understand that.
exactly. Yeah,
Yeah.
so that was
I
my
can understand.
first kind of pivot point. And then at that point also, I kind of, it rolled into different changes in my life. I had a 4-year relationship that ended at that point, and I was living out of home and kind of moved back home and needed more support. I stopped being able to drive. I wasn't allowed to drive anymore. So there was a lot of independent shifts at that point as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah, they're big pivotal moments, aren't they? And so after those sort of changes, you've obviously found hope and joy. And
Mhm.
where do you get that from?
Yeah. I love to think of, like, the big moments and the little moments when I think of hope and joy. For me, like I always say, connection is my why. That's my sense of purpose, is to connect. And it really leads the decisions that I make as well, and where I kind of prioritize my energy and my time. Creative endeavors are definitely a point of joy. I was always a creative person when I was younger. I was a dancer when I was younger, and that's kind of how I expressed myself. But that's not really an option now. So I found words and I found poetry first, kind of during lockdown time. And it was actually when I was losing my physical ability to speak very much. I had a lot of weak vocal cord weakness and breathing weakness, and I was like, how can I still connect with people and communicate? I originally found writing that way, so that definitely brings me joy. My creative ventures, my photography, my filmmaking now. Also my family and friends, and I'm a dog mom, so my dogs bring me a lot of joy. I have two cavaliers and,
Oh, they're
yeah,
gorgeous. Yes.
oh,
Yeah.
they're so special, and it's just that unconditional, pure they give you joy, you know?
That's
Yeah,
right. Yeah, yeah, that real
absolutely,
unconditional, love and comfort. Yeah, yeah, that's really
absolutely,
helpful.
yeah,
And going back to your filmmaking, it's
yeah,
actually, what did you call it? It's poetry, a poem film
yeah,
or something. There was a word you used, and that
yeah,
was, entered into a couple of competitions too. Can you tell us a little bit about that? That
yeah,
was really lovely.
yeah. Yeah, so, it kind of was for me, a natural extension. I love when you can immerse yourself into art pieces, and I found I was doing a bit of spoken word poetry, with my poems, and I thought about different ways you can, absorb that story, and, I was like, "What if we could make this more visual, and what if I could" a lot of my poetry has multi layers to it, and often takes multiple readings to kind of get the different layers. And I loved the idea that watching a film, I could kind of explore those different layers of the writing and the poetry. So I've created four now, so far, four different poetry short films, and yeah, have started entering them into different film festivals and competitions, and it's been a wonderful, really heartwarming response. And from different communities. I was fortunate enough to travel earlier this year to LA for a film festival where one of them was showing, which was an incredible experience. And I've also had one recently that showed at Acme for a smartphone film festival. And I just love those moments of connection with an audience, where you can directly, see or feel in that room the impact and the way that they are connecting with different storylines, which often aren't explored in traditional media. I think that's kind of why I've started delving that way as well, just to have that more authentic representation in different storytelling formats. So, yeah, it's been a real joy.
That's fantastic. And so you think, a lot of your, poetry and storytelling is obviously, experience driven. So a lot of thought processes and a lot of, things that have happened to you that, have manifested, in these words and probably
Yeah,
not typical of a lot of experiences. So that's why getting great reception for them.
yeah,
And there's also, I think, Therefore I Slam, which is a great
yes,
name for a podcast.
absolutely.
And you were both entered in poetry competitions there. So they're all over Melbourne, aren't they?
Yeah,
These
so
poetry,
yeah,
like,
it's
are they
again a one.
clubs or something?
They're actually a super welcoming community. Anyone can pretty much show up to a performance, and a lot of them are kind of open mic nights. So,
Mhm.
where someone can just tell a story or a poem, or some people get up and do music or a joke, even like really open spaces. And it's kind of was my foray into that performance kind of side of things. I was very fortunate to, be with Andrew at the state finals for a poetry slam competition, which is a national competition, and there's little heats all over throughout the year, all over Australia. And then I've also been a little bit introduced to the international kind of slam scene as well, which is really strong in America, but it's kind of spoken word really is an international like language. It kind of is featured all over the world. So it's an amazing community, and everyone is so welcoming, and yeah, it's wonderful.
Mm. Brilliant, brilliant. So who couldn't or wouldn't you want to live without, and why, Taylor?
Yeah, definitely my mum. My mum is my rock. That is very cliche, but she has literally been my hands, my eyes, my everything. Uh, she's a single mum and kind of raised me and my three siblings. So we were already very close before my
Mhm.
condition progressed. And we've always had an amazing bond. I don't know if you've ever seen the show Gilmore Girls or heard of the show Gilmore Girls.
Oh, yeah, my
Yeah,
daughter,
that's
your age, is absolutely obsessed with it even now. That's her kind of
that.
go-to to rewatch all the time.
Yeah, it's my comfort show. Absolutely.
Yes,
um,
yeah. And
it's
that's how you,
definitely
consider your relationship
yeah,
with your mum?
with my mum. Yeah, so it's been a beautiful relationship, and I feel very fortunate. I live with her now, and she's my primary carer, and I we often say how fortunate we are that we kind of had that relationship already, and then it can
Yeah,
be tested sometimes for sure in kind of more caring role. But yeah, she's the person that I definitely couldn't live without, and or wouldn't want to.
that's beautiful. Yeah, that's really beautiful. What device or gadget makes your life easier?
There's a few that spring to mind. The easiest obvious one is my wheelchair. I just wouldn't get out of the house without it, and sometimes I wouldn't be able to get to the toilet without it. And
Mhm.
it's extremely important, and very fortunate to have that option. The other one that I think of is my phone, actually. And there's a lot that is helpful accessibility wise on my phone. I often use text to speech apps. I use
Mm.
them particularly when my voice is very weak, but also I use them sometimes when my eye muscles are really weak and I need text read back to me. So there's some wonderful apps online or that you can purchase that read in a real, like sometimes they're a famous person's voice, or like it's a really natural voice to listen back
Yeah.
to. And I also, when I'm in paralysis or needing to rest a lot, there's not much you can do in that time if you're still awake. So I really gravitate towards podcasts and audiobooks because it's something that is like no energy, and I still feel a part of the world, and I still feel like I'm learning and growing, or just having that company. Sometimes it'll be a pop culture podcast and it will just feel like I've got friends around me. It's kind of that company. So my phone is amazing in that way. And obviously for writing as well. I use a lot just in Notes app and stuff to make notes for my writing. So yeah.
That's great. And you use the voice to text, do you, for writing your
Mm.
notes? A lot of the time? Yeah.
Yes, sometimes I do. Sometimes my voice is like actually a bit harder for me to use. So I'll switch between. Sometimes my hands are a little bit easier, and sometimes my voice is. So it just depends what I've used a bit more of and what's a bit weaker that day. But yeah, they've got great functions on the phones.
Mm. They're great gadgets and great explanations that I'm sure will help people, and I'd never sort of really thought about it, but I, sort of listen if I just wanna lie in bed a little bit longer in the morning, I'll listen to a podcast or listen to my audiobook because I can't pick up a book, and read it, but But you're right, there is that other element. It still means that you're part of the world, and there's so many different subjects you can choose to listen to, and so many different people and that sort of thing. That's a great insight. Thank you very much. And what resource has helped you navigate your life?
Yeah, there's a few that come to mind again. Definitely the condition-specific pages, and whether that's Facebook groups or the traditional pages where you're getting kind of that information and the research. I often find that different organizations can also have info days or I guess where they are explaining a bit more, having doctors in, or I found that really helpful as well. And a lot of them are online, even if they're international. You can sometimes watch recordings, or
Hmm.
because a lot of mine are international, so it's like might be the middle of the night, and I'm like, no, not logging on at 12, 1 a.m. But I've definitely found, there's some great resources through the organizations. I also think, I was thinking with like NDIS, if you have NDIS funding, there's a group called The Growing Space, which I use a lot just for guidance with NDIS information. It's really accessible, and they often do short videos when there's been changes because there's constant changes. I find them really good at explaining. I also, more broadly, there's a couple of podcasts and people that I follow that have really helped me with the idea of change and constant change and having to adapt. Even if they're not disability specific, there's a podcast called The Slight Change of Plans, and it's by Maya Shankar, and she is a behavioral psychologist, but she talks to all different people who have had big shifts and changes in their life. So sometimes that can be really dramatic, like deaths or injury or big kind of trauma. And sometimes it can be the smaller things. She had a parent on there who was having a difficult time with their last child leaving home and kind of that empty nest idea. But there's a lot of episodes on there which I've really found helpful to kind of navigate my own change pathway. Also, Brene Brown is someone that I listen a lot to, or have kind of listened to her audio books and podcasts, and I find just really helpful kind of overall, and kind of links in a little bit with my other thing, which is a psychologist, which I found extremely helpful whilst navigating kind of everything as well. So there are a few resources I pull on a little bit.
That's a lot of resources. Thank you. That's really
Yeah.
good. And I'll put some links to these down in the show notes too, because they're really great. They're once again some really great answers. Thank you. I'm sure that'll be helping
Nice.
a lot of people listening, including me. So, second last, kind of last really, what is your advice to other people newly diagnosed or potential carers of those newly diagnosed?
Mm. I've got a few kind of things that I reflect on and really think that help me like early on, but also today as well. One is that allowing yourself to grieve and allowing yourself kind of that space and that grace to understand what is triggering you, and then sometimes put in those boundaries, and that will change, and that it's constantly in flux, if that makes sense. There's like a cyclical, fluctuating model of grief that I was introduced to recently, and it talks about moving in and out of kind of building life and then grieving for things that you've lost. And that can be the smallest things, or big things like friendships, or, small things like, being able to brush your teeth or something. There's a lot of triggers that can happen. And I just think allowing yourself to go in and out of that space of kind of rebuilding life and finding that sense of purpose and that joy again, and then, know that it's constantly going to be in flux. Something that's been really important for me has been to build my team, and to kind of, by that I mean, formally, so medical professionals, allied health, but then also thinking about who's in my inner circle with my support, with family and friends, and having that sense of autonomy, feeling like you have the choice. They that you can choose, particularly with medical professionals, if someone doesn't feel like it's quite the right fit for you, it may just be they have a different approach, or you might need different expertise or a different way to kind of see something. So sometimes, yeah, I think feeling like you have the choice over your own body, and that you can choose who you want to kind of help guide you through that. Um, I also think that I like, particularly when I need support and help, it took me a long time to accept, or quite a lot of processes to accept support and help. And I like to think of it now as delegating in my mind. So what
Yeah.
I try to think, what do I not want to do, or what are things that I don't really need to do, and kind of like, okay, would you please help me with those? And then the things that are really sacred to me and really important to me, I try and preserve my energy and my time for those things. And that kind of comes in with quality over quantity of time as well. I with friendships and with different things, I try and remind myself that if I can be super present and show up, even if it's just for an hour, whereas like my friends might do something for 3 days, it's
Yes.
that quality time.
Yes.
And it helps me have a bit less FOMO as well, a bit
Yeah.
less fear of missing out.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
can understand that, or I do, would definitely relate to that. But being, 30 years younger, there'd be a lot of that sort of thing going on. So you'd have to make peace with that idea, yeah, that you're still involved. It's a little bit like I remember years ago when I was doing Weight Watchers, like a million years ago. And I always remember being told that, you don't need that whole piece of chocolate cake after the first mouthful, or first two mouthfuls. You're really just eating because you like it. You already know, you've tasted it, you know what it tastes like. And it's kind of a little bit like that. Like you have 3 hours of this 2 day, hens,
Yeah.
weekend or whatever it might be. So you've tasted it, you've had a giggle, you've done those bits, and you just have to sort of try and just make that be your mindset, don't you?
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
exactly. It does help. There's still tricky bits there, but I think, like
Of
you said, that was
course.
such a good example. Like that,
Of
it
course.
it's you're still getting all of those, emotions happen in that space of time still.
Yeah.
And yeah, and I think,
It's not quite the
having
same,
those
I know
people.
that was
No,
sorry.
no, no. It was a great example. I've heard that before as well. So, and
No.
I have gastroparesis as well, so it really helps with that too. That if I can't eat much of something, I'll be like, I'm going to have a little bit of everything.
Yeah.
So
Very good
yeah,
then.
it's great.
Yeah, that's relatable, and yeah, I love all your advice there too, and I'm sure a lot of people will be able to learn just as much from you from listening to this, and in particular the having taking time to get the right people around you, and not to be scared to sort of ask for a second opinion, or choose a different doctor or specialist. That's, I think, very important for us. That yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah. Well done. Oh, thanks, Taylor. I know you're going to be helping a lot of people listening, and I really, really appreciate your time today. This has
I
been
was so
lovely.
excited. I was so excited.
Where can we get in contact with you? I will put these
Yeah,
links on the bottom as well. Where can we see
wonderful.
what you're doing?
At the moment, the most central place where I'm most active is on Instagram. So my handle's at tay.j, and that's where I kind of post the most, and kind of, DMs and everything. I also have a LinkedIn, it's just my name, Tayla Richardson. And that's kind of more where I'm posting a lot of my work content at the moment.
And that's Taylor
I'm
without a
work,
name,
yes, Tayla. Yes, yeah,
Richardson.
Richardson.
Yes.
Yeah, and working on a website, but it's not quite up yet. So, yeah, that'll come probably in the next few months.
Oh, great. Looking forward to that. Yeah, that'll be
Yeah.
lovely. And can we see any more of your poetry film poetry films
Yes.
anywhere, or are you going to put them on your website?
Yeah, definitely. There's a few that are available publicly at the moment. Most of them are easiest to find. There's a link in my bio of my Instagram, which kind of have all of them listed in there. There's one that's recently gone online with the Grieve Project, which is an amazing project run through the Hunter Writers Centre. And I was lucky to be long listed with them this year, and one of my films is up with them at the moment as well, which I haven't quite posted yet, but we'll get to very
Congrats.
shortly. Thank you. And yeah, so there's a few spaces. Focus on Ability Festival is where another one is at the moment, but yeah, all the links are in the bio. It's probably easiest to find there. And also, if you just Google me, kind of a lot of my stuff comes up as well. So
Okay.
yeah, easy to find.
Sensational. Thank you so much. It's been a lovely, lovely chat, Tayla. This is Leanne. Thanks for your time in listening to this podcast, You, Me and Muscular Dystrophy. To continue to help our community, it would be so great if you could like, share, subscribe and or comment on the show. Your feedback is always appreciated, and if you would like to be a guest, please contact me through Instagram, leanne's_wheel_life, or email leanne@leanneswheellife.com. Take care until we come together on the next episode of You, Me and Muscular Dystrophy.